The Guntank can break up the enemy's offensive line, which will make it easier for White Base to defend itself.
You just worry about shooting as many planes as possible.
I only hit one plane? It's impossible to shoot down these planes without the use of anti-aircraft gun. Ah!
Hey everyone, I'm Dallas Welk, and today I'm building the RX-75 Guntank. This is not my first kit, but I am quite new to building Gunpla. I'm going to attempt to actually paint this model, and I'll be trying out some techniques to weather the kit and make it look all dirty and shit. Alright, okay, let's get into it. Let's do it. Let's start it. Oh wait, if anyone's interested, I put out a Gundam RPG podcast with my friends called Feddie, Scum. We roleplay characters during the 1 Year War, and some people tell us it's a good podcast, and sometimes we believe them, so go check that out. Now, let's get into the build. So let's get a look at that box, shall we? I won't spend too much time on all this stuff, because I usually find this part the most boring part of other Gunpla videos, but I do want to fill in some time, so... As you can see, there's runners and plastic bags, the instructions, we got the poly caps, we got this runner, we got this one, and here's the back of it. Got a red one, we got this blue one, we got this long one. Well, that's it. Not a lot to this kit, so I guess we'll get to building. Okay, the directions told me to start with the tank treads. Oh god. Oh my god, so much cutting. This kit is sort of lopsided because putting together the treads and the waist make up about 80% of the time you actually spend building it. God damn it, fucking won't go in the goddamn hole, god stupid. I did enjoy not having to put together two legs. And here you go, a completed Guntank's ass. He's very bottom heavy. Next I started on one of the arms. Oh god, that was a lot. Just kidding. And then the other arm. Next I worked on his chest. See how it holds up to a spin test. Oh shit. So I just started cutting the pieces for the head, and then I saw this. What the fuck does that mean? What does it mean? I'm sure it'll be fine. There it is. One little head. Yeah, let me get a close-up of the pilot. Now I'm building the two gigantic cannons on his back. Yeah. And last but not least, his backpack. So we could go to school. Here's that. Gonna just put that in there, and then there we go. Now we can move on to the final assembly. Oops, alright, I forgot a piece. Oh, fuck, this piece won't stay in. I need like super glue or something? Here we go. Motherfucker! Next, let's talk about priming. I was actually going to skip over this part because, it's boring, but this is where I made my first big mistake. So while priming, I dropped one of the walls of the tank treads while it was covered in paint. I panicked and rushed it to a bathroom to try to remove some of the paint. That didn't work. Ultimately, I just covered the bad spots with giant mounds of paint. And this is what I got out of it. Here's the other side for reference. I know, I hate it as much as you do. Hey look, some hair got in the paint. Awesome. Well, here's all my primed pieces. Aren't they beautiful? Not you. Next, I wanted to try my hand at airbrushing. I have zero experience with this and just recently bought this cheapo $30 airbrush and this small shop compressor from Walmart. I think this is where I make my second biggest mistake in creating the worst paint job ever. I think I needed to spend some time tuning my airbrush or maybe dish out more money for a better one. I was just putting out way too much paint. And when lowering the air pressure, it would cause the paint to not flow at all. Now, there were some pieces that turned out great. These were usually the flatter pieces that I could cover in 1 or 2 pumps. The pieces that had small nooks and crannies, though, didn't turn out so good. I tried to fix my mistakes. I waited for the pieces to dry and I took a file and sanded some of the paint mounds. I then went and hand brushed those areas. Do I need to paint white on white primer? It doesn't seem to do anything. Oops, missed a spot. Now, this is where I make my third big mistake. I didn't thin out my paints while hand brushing them. This ended up leaving brush strokes and general shittiness. I corrected this after a few seconds of research and a call to a friend for advice. But the damage was done. All I can say is I'm glad I decided to go with weathering on this kit beforehand because, well, hopefully most of my mistakes will be hidden or maybe play into the overall grime that I was shooting for. And here it is, the worst paint job ever. If you've performed worse paint jobs before, leave a comment. I can't be the only one. Kind of funny that the spot where the bad primer happened is kind of hidden under all this other stuff. I ended up painting the pilot orange. I mean, it's not that bad for my first time, right? Right? Well, this brings us to our last step, weathering. I started with a wash with this brown panel liner, but that didn't do anything. I then went with black panel liner and lined the panels. I also slathered it into many of the crevices to give some depth and add some oily grime. After that, I took an eraser and cleaned up some of the areas. I was happy with this effect for the most part. It already seemed to be covering up a lot of my mistakes. Then I went with some Citadel texture paint. This one was called Armageddon Dunes. I painted it on all the tank treads and some of the sides. This stuff is really cool because it's very low effort and made the treads look realistically muddy. I dry brushed some black paint on top after it dried to give some shadows to the texture. Then, what I considered the funnest part of weathering, chipping. I took an old frayed brush and poked a bunch of light metallic paint randomly on all the parts. I was eventually able to give it a realistic chipped look, but I wish I planned the placing a little better because I think it turned out to be a little too heavy in some spots. I then did something that I saw someone do in another video before. They used charcoal soot to blacken the muzzle of the weapon. I tried that, but it didn't really actually show up too well. I also got charcoal everywhere, and it ruined my life for a second or two. Anyways, after getting washed up, I dry brushed some earth-colored paint all around to just increase that dirtiness I was aiming for. I even painted a splash of mud to the Guntank's windshield. Yeah, try seeing through that. And this might have been overkill, but I went and added a slight rust color to some of the metallic chips. I don't know if this enhanced it any, but I wanted to try it, and I think it turned out okay. And then I gave it a quick matte top coat, and it was done. Thanks for watching, guys. Even though I made many mistakes, I'm still happy with how it turned out. Not only was this my first full build, but it was also my first YouTube video. I want to get better at both making videos and building Gunpla, and I decided to document my progress and make a build video each time I start a new kit. If you have any tips for me, please comment them so I can learn what not to do next time. Again, check out my podcast, Feddie Scum, if you aren't already a listener. A link to the podcast YouTube will be linked in the description. Bye, guys.